Nik Kershaw, hello.
Hi, Steve.
Really good to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
Congratulations on being my favourite pop song.
Oh,
you were honestly a conveyor belt of the most perfect pop songs in the 80s.
Oh, thank you. You do say that to all your guests, I'm sure.
Stop it. I'm going to start with one of them. I love the fact that we put a few of your own in. First question.
I didn't put a few of my own in. Can I just make that very clear to the listeners?
All right. I said to Nick, we're only going to do this if we play a couple of your own. And the first one is the Riddle.
Okay.
Now, please tell me about this. There's loads of stuff online about is it really meant to be kind of, because there's loads of people going, well, it's not actually about anything. How did you write it? What's it about?
It's all true. So basically I had 2 weeks to write 9 songs for the second album, because there were 2 albums recorded in 1984. And the Riddle was the last one. And I didn't have a complete lyric, and I just won't put a whole load of nonsense down, just because we're in the studio the next week. Get in the studio, put a guide vocal down with the nonsense and start recording. A couple of weeks later I come back with some revised words and start singing them, and everybody goes, nah, doesn't sound right. We just got so used to the nonsense, we decided to keep it. And then I thought, what are we going to call it? And I thought, I'll call it the Riddle, and people will actually think it's about something, not realising that people were actually going to totally jump on board that and get involved, you know, to the extent that they did.
Yeah.
And it actually became quite embarrassing, because I kept going on radio shows and today Nick will tell us what the Riddle's about. No, he won't.
And 40 years on the YouTube page for the video, people are still having this discussion.
Yes, I know.
It's got to be the most beautifully formed piece of nonsense, because it is such a great song.
There are precedents. There's, White a Shade of Pale, and there's lots of good old nonsense songs out there. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Nik Kershaw's with me. We're doing my 80s playlist. You're a dream guest. I've been trying to get you in here for a good year.
Wow.
Just about to go on tour. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling good. Obviously, a lot of those songs we've played before, because they were hits in the first place. So we've played those over the years. But there's a good handful of songs that I haven't played since 1984, 85, and one song I've never played live. Which is a song called Easy, and the reason we haven't played it is because it's not.
It's anything but.
Because it's got Mark King on bass. So no, I've never had a bass player brave enough to take it on until now. So there you go.
I'm looking at your amazing set of songs here. We're going to go straight in with Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Yeah. Why 2 Tribes?
It could have been relaxed. I don't know. It was just the first 2 albums were recorded at Psalm Studios, and obviously that's where Trevor Horn hung out, and that's where he was in Studio 1. And we just got wind of the fact something amazing was going on up there. We shared musicians and stuff like that on both projects, and so they'd walk into my studio and say, you should check out what's going on up there, So we knew about it, and we were privileged enough to be some of the first to hear Relax and 2 Tribes. I do remember someone coming in with a copy of 2 Tribes and sticking it on the big speakers in the studio, and we thought we were doing quite well. We thought I sounded quite good, and then they put 2 Tribes on it. It was like, okay.
Can you remember? I've got to ask you this: the first time you heard that track, then so you heard it. How did it make you feel from moment one? Because it's such an epic sound. It is.
It's just totally blown away. I mean, just the production. I mean, Trevor Horn's been one of my producer heroes for a long time. I've got a huge amount of admiration for him, even before he did these tracks. But yeah, it was extraordinary. I mean, sounds you didn't know. I mean, technology was happening really quite fast at that time. There's loads of new great musical things coming out, and from Japan, but he made it so musical. That's the thing. It's always all very well having the technology and having the sounds, but it's just putting him in the right place, but still keeping the song, not overproducing, and just. But every sound on that record, it sounds like it's been honed, and it was. He spent days and days and days on one overdub. I know he did.
And a game changer.
Yeah, totally. It changed the production. The map of music production.
Nik Kershaw's with me. We're going to play another one of your songs. This is I Won't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. There was a rumour that did you recall the video, the Hammersmith Odeon?
Yeah, the second we recorded 2 videos for it. The first time because it was originally released in 1983.
Yeah,
it was my first release, and it kind of got my name around, and I did a few radio interviews, and it just kind of made people familiar with me. But it wasn't a massive hit. It got into the 40s, I think. But so we made the first video was in a castle in Kent somewhere, and it's just it was just totally random. There were chickens running about, and minstrels and kids, and it was all very bizarre. And I'd already had the big hit with "Wouldn't It Be Good," and and they said, well, and I'd done a tour and done 4 nights at Hammersmith Odeon, and they said, well, why don't we just do another night, advertise it, and make it free, and just film a video at the end of it.
Because someone I know had to send like a stamp addressed letter in order to be part of the audience for the video, and they're in the video, and it's their claim to fame. I think they've been dining out on this story for
I mean, can you imagine? We didn't have the internet. You couldn't just sort of log on. People actually wrote on a stamped addressed envelope and put it in the post box. Yeah.
And what does this song mean to you now?
It's do you know what you fall in and out of love with your own songs over the years, and I've had a weird relationship with this song. I wasn't mad about the how it came out in the first place. I thought it was because it was supposed to be a protest song, and the original demo was more of a folky affair. You know, it's like a Bob Dylan protest song or whatever. But it turned into this pop anthem, and it to me it sounded a little bit cheesy, but then all my songs I've grown to respect and love because they've been so good to me, and they've enabled me to do what I want to do over the years, you know, and put me in the position I'm in now, really. So I've got much more respect for them than I maybe did have before.
Nik Kershaw's with me. We are doing My 80s Place. Are you enjoying this so far?
This is great fun.
We are going straight in. We're going full pelt. Right. Adam and the Ants now.
Adam and the Ants.
Come on.
Yeah, well, and so I would have been, I don't know, I was in a jazz fusion band at the time. I guess. Yeah, probably in the very early 80s, when Adam first came out. But I had, but I was thinking about writing songs and just sort of, you know, and I could see that the band I was in had a bit of a shelf life and things weren't going great, and I was going to have to think about doing my own thing, and just. He changed the rules again, didn't he? He just kind of sort of turned up, and he was just everything. I mean, when he turned up, I thought, what is this? Is this punk? This isn't punk, or is this pop? Is this panto? What is this? This is just extraordinary.
What was it? How would you? Even now, I would have trouble.
Well, you would, because the songs themselves, the records themselves, don't really sound like anything else. Mm-hmm. You know, they're all very rhythmically based and a bit shouty and a bit kind of. Yeah, they're not what was going on at the time. Certainly not. And but on top of that, he had the whole visual thing absolutely nailed. You know, he was properly on top of things, on top of all that. And then there was all the Mike Mansfield videos and stuff. You know, Prince Charming and all that.
Mm-hmm. Would you say he's one of the artists that kind of inspired you at that time?
I don't know if he did at the time. I mean, I kind of grown to appreciate him more over the years, and plus my wife was a massive Adam fan, and there's this picture on the internet of me and Adam backstage at Live Aid, because we hung out quite a lot for some reason. I don't know why, but we did then. And I remember one of our first dates was Adam did some he'd comeback shows, and he was under the bridge at Chelsea Football Ground, and I took her to see that. So that was a bit odd, actually, I have to say, because he'd obviously just decided to do these one-off gigs and whatever. Yeah. And he'd got his scratch band, like they were clearly kids or whatever, and they were jeans and t-shirt, and he walks on just like Captain Jack Sparrow. It was like, there's something not right here, but it was amazing to see him.
Nik Kershaw's with me. We're doing My 80s Place. I've got to ask you, we touched on this a moment ago. You were at Live Aid. It's always a special thing to ask somebody who was there at that day. What do you remember?
I think I remember quite a lot, but because I'm always getting reminded about it. Often I'm always being asked, not unsurprisingly.
First question, so did you know when you were there on that day, this is going to be a day that people are going to be asking me about in 40 years? This is something big.
Yeah, I mean, you did, because there was such a build-up to it. I remember, because Bob asked me to do it. He was lurking at Heathrow Airport in the January of 85, because Band-Aid had just happened, pouncing on a bunch of us who were just going over to a big festival in Germany. And he said, do you want to do a gig? He said, yeah, I'd love to do a gig. Don't say no to Bob anyway. So, but at the time, it was like, I don't know, what's it going to be, Hammersmith Odeon or whatever. Then it started getting media attention, and it was, it could be Wembley Arena, isn't it? Then it was going to be Wembley Stadium. Then 2 billion people watching on television. It just became this huge thing, and a huge amount of interest from the media. So by the time you walked on stage, you knew this was something a bit special that people are going to remember. Yeah,
it sounds like a very nerve-wracking experience. Can you remember that moment?
It was utterly terrifying. I mean, there's been a few times in my life when I just don't know how I actually got through it, because even just walking on stage, you're just in remote control. Your legs are carrying you onto stage in front of 80,000 people, and your mouth is moving up and down, and there's words coming out, and your hands are playing the guitar, but you're kind of outside yourself looking in.
Because you feel that the world was watching.
Yeah, you do. And one of my biggest regrets is, and this goes from pretty much my whole career in that time, is that I didn't just relax a bit and just enjoy it and just sort of take it all in. I remember talking to Howard Jones after he'd been on as well. We're backstage, and at the Hard Rock had a little set up back there, and we were chatting away, and he said, well, how was it for you? And I was like, I was absolutely terrified. I was so nervous. I'm just glad I kind of got through it without making too much of an idiot of myself. And he was like, and because Howard only played one, they only played one song, Howard, just at the piano playing hide and seek, I think it was. And he said, I wanted it to go on forever. He was just completely in the moment and loving it, and I just wish I could have done that,
Your next song is The Police. Why have you picked this one?
Oh, big Sting fan. And The Police were again, they were just a bit different. They were kind of, it was really intelligent music. It was just the three of them making this massive racket, and every member had, Stuart and Andy, they had their own. They brought a huge amount to the party. But I met Sting a couple of times. I think I met him. I think the first time I met him, he turned up at Top of the Pops when Band-Aid were doing their thing. Except that most of Band-Aid weren't there. So you should check it out. It's on YouTube. It's amazing. It's people miming to other people's singing.
Really?
And yeah, because there's one point at which Paul Weller is doing the Bono line, and it's hilarious. But he was there then, and we did have a chat at Live Aid as well, and I've always been a big fan of Sting's and what he's done over the years, and how he's reinvented himself several times, and he's not afraid to try new things. I mean, I don't claim to have bought his Loot album. That might have been a step too far, but he was brave enough to
put it out.
I'm going to do this now, and good for him.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
Nik Kershaw's with me. It's my 80s playlist. I think this is my favourite David Bowie song that you put on your list here. I love this track. I don't know why I love it, but it's always spoken to me, and it's really cool to speak to somebody who's you clearly like it as well.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is it about this track?
I had to have a Bowie track because Bowie is why I don't have a proper job. I mean, he basically is. If there's any one person responsible, it's David Bowie.
And what was it that spoke to you?
It was, I don't know. It was the whole otherworldliness of him. I mean, because I got into him in the early 70s, around about Aladdin Sane, and then I went back, and then Ziggy Stardust and Hunky Dory and all that period. So that's my Bowie. It's like everybody's got a Doctor Who, haven't they? My Bowie is that one. And I kind of lost it. I lost him a little bit or he lost me in the sort of late 70s, the Diamond Dogs and the Young American and all that kind of stuff. But then he released this in the 80s, and it was kind of it kind of just harked back to it's Major Tom and just the space thing and just his persona in the early 70s, and it just kind of brought that all back to me, and I think that's why he did it, not just to bring it back to me obviously, but it's definitely an homage to that time in his career. I think
element of going kind of back to basics, kind of where, you know, revisiting where it started from, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but and also, and it just the way he works melodically is just it's been a huge inspiration to me. The way he just jumps about all over the place, and this song does it as well. So it's just it's got everything as far as I'm concerned.
Nik Kershaw's with me. It's my 80s playlist. It will be criminal not to talk about. Wouldn't it be good? You're just about to go out on tour, aren't you?
Yeah.
And replay all these songs 40 years after. I can imagine this one goes down pretty well.
Yeah, we might play this one. This I think it's my favourite of the old songs.
Is it really?
It is, yeah, because it was the last song on the first album. I wrote it while we were in the studio. So there was never really a proper demo, and it just kind of grew in the studio. And I just remember people, sort of session musicians, coming in, and we put it on the big speakers, and they come in and and they were just mad about this one. They just went, "It's this one. This is the one."
So what is it about
I don't know.
this?
It's just it's without sounding a bit too pompous about it. There's a certain majesty about it. I don't know, and that's not me blowing my own trumpet. It's just kind of because sometimes just songs have a life of their own. You know, they just take you over. And this is the one song that I've never even attempted to fiddle with live. And you do with the other songs. You get fed up with playing them live, and then you completely change the arrangement or the instrumentation or whatever, and you just to keep yourself interested. I've never done that with Wouldn't It Be Good. It's always just been great, just standing on stage, just bashing out those first few chords. There have been a couple of people who've come in, previous guests. Now, Howard Jones, we had a chat about Things Can Only Get Better. Kim Wilde with You Came, and they both said about these particular songs that they just had something, like almost another word, like they were just perfect. Yeah, I don't know if there is such a thing as a perfect pop song, but yeah, absolutely. I was totally happy with the way it came out, and it's the song that made all the difference. It's the song that launched me, and it's and to a lot of people, it's the song that I'm identified with. And also a question then, a bit of a spoiler alert, you may not want to answer this, but when you do go out on tour, will this be the last track, will this be the encore, or are you going to... Not necessarily. Though, to be honest with you, I haven't actually totally figured that out yet. Okay. I mean, it's only about a few weeks away, but, you know, I like to keep things to the last minute. I love it. Nik Kershaw's with me. Okay, let's talk Tears for Fears on my 80s playlist. What a band. Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, I was aware of them with Mad World and that album, but I remember where I was when I first heard Shout, and it was I think Peter Powell played it to me. I know exactly when it was. I was promoting the Riddle and went in and he was playing the Riddle. He said, "Have you heard the new Tears for Fears one?" I thought, "No, I haven't," and he played it to me, and I thought, "Wow, that's amazing." And that whole album, I toured the world basically in '85, and that was never off my Walkman. That was there when I was sitting on the bus, sitting on the plane. That was always there with me, the whole album, because, and I mentioned before, all this new emerging technology coming out for music and this 8-bit sampling and stuff like that. And loads of people were messing about with it, and loads of people were making lots of wacky noises, but Tears for Fears were making music with it, and that was what was extraordinary. And they've done it ever since, and the albums after that were equally impressive. Was this another one of those examples, a bit like, you know, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, one of those tracks you hear and you go, this is different, this is next level stuff? And also the song itself is just we talking about perfect pop songs, it's as close as it gets. I think it really is, and just that word shout, and it's exactly what you want to do when you get to that chorus. Yeah. And I know I have never seen them live, and I'm sure that song live is just epic, and the whole crowd is right there for it.
Nik Kershaw's with me. We've gone. All these songs are really, really big, aren't they? They're all big. They're all like real kind of memorable tracks that remind you of different parts of the 80s. Toto in Africa.
Yeah.
It's one of those songs that like has managed to just kind of live on through decades, through generations. It's still, when I play this now, I feel really good about playing it. What is it about this song?
I think, well, Toto generally, I was learning guitar in the 70s, and I was a lot of my guitar. One of my guitar heroes was Steve Lukather, and I got to play with Jeff Porcaro. He played on my fourth album, and then Jeff sadly died in a bizarre gardening accident, which was extraordinary. And my friend, a dear friend, Simon Phillips, joined the band, and I'd never seen them live. And he said, "Well, I'm coming over. We're playing the Astoria and Charing Cross. Do you want to come along?" I said, "Of course I want to come along." And for years, my mates have been telling me, "You've got to go and see Toto live. They're amazing, absolutely amazing." So I went along, and my one abiding memory, apart from the gig being astounding,
was it?
Oh, it was incredible, and Simon was incredible as well. But standing backstage afterwards, talking to Steve Lukather, a guitar hero, on my right, and Jeff Beck, a guitar hero, on my left, and me holding a conversation with I thought, this is one of those moments. This is amazing.
Do you think this song almost took on a life of its own? I heard a rumour that they were a little bit agitated, that most people only know them.
Yeah,
possibly this generation would only know them really through this song.
Yeah, because it's not a typical song for those guys.
I always thought "Hold the Line" was more
or
typical.
Rosanna or whatever.
Yes,
they're amazing songs, and this was a bit of a poppier kind of. I mean, a lot of big rock acts and prog acts kind of resent the songs that everyone knows them from, because that's the same as Jeff Beck hated "Hi Ho Silver Lining." That's not what they did, and I get, but it's still a great song, and it's a great pop song.
Nik Kershaw on my 80s playlist. Here we go then. Peter Gabriel, Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
I've got so many questions about that video. I mean,
extraordinary. Well, he's got a few extraordinary videos, hasn't he? So I was a massive prog fan in the early 70s. I loved me Genesis, I loved me Yes, I loved me King Crimson, me Gentle Giant. It was all those bands, and I was fortunate enough to, one of the first ever gigs I went to was Genesis doing "The Lamb Lies Down" on Broadway in Wembley Arena.
Wow.
I probably only about 15. I don't know how old I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm always a massive Peter Gabriel fan. And again, we were talking about this earlier. A lot of people wouldn't know him, and I remember Sledgehammer coming out and people jumping on it, and this probably clearly his most popular song. And I think the Daily Mirror or the Daily Mail coming out with husky voiced singer Peter Gabriel. It's like, husky voiced singer? You guys are, you obviously don't know who Peter Gabriel is. This is extraordinary. But yeah, it brought him to a lot of people's attention. But at the same time, it's still great. He hasn't kind of sacrificed anything.
No.
To make this.
The song would have lived on without
absolutely,
the video.
This pop record. The song would have lived out with the video. It's fantastic production, as what you expect from a Peter Gabriel record. So yeah. It's Sledgehammer.
Did you enjoy making videos? Because you're very much part of that generation that were, you had to think of image as well as the song sound. You had the MTV thing starting.
Yeah.
Some people come in and they go, "Do you know what? It was a hassle. We hated it. We wanted to get into music."
I was definitely not in my comfort zone doing it. It wasn't my thing. I wasn't a visual kind of person. I mean,
really?
To the effect that I used to just, when I was in bands previously, it was jeans and t-shirt, that was it, and used to stand at the back. So it was the fact that cameras pointing at me and I had to perform and be somebody in front of these cameras was quite difficult for me. And the videos were always hard work. I mean, they're really, really hard work. I remember usually 2 or 3 days and whatever. I remember Storm, who produced the Riddle video, said to me, just to say it's a one-day shoot. And I thought, brilliant, just a one-day shoot. And it was 24 hours. It was brutal and expensive.
And loads of waiting around, I suppose, wasn't it?
Excuse me. Loads of waiting around, hanging about. But on the other hand, you're having all this attention lavished upon you, and you've got a Winnebago, and you feel like a film star. So it's all kind of, it's a double-edged sword, really. It's lots of hard work, lots of things out of your control, because you don't really know what it's going to look like until they kind of stick it all together and you see it in about 2 weeks later.
Do you have a proudest moment of your favourite video that you ever made?
I think the Riddle is one of them. I think that was because I kind of, because they built a whole set before I even got there, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. They must have been on this for weeks. So I kind of knew what it was going to look like, and it was really well shot, and it did look like that. But Wide Boy was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun. I got to dress up and be a teddy boy and a Beatle and a and a rock star. It was good fun.
And you clearly had some budget by then, to go
absolutely.
bigger with them.
Yeah. Well, although you don't ever consider at the time that it's your money you're spending. But
yes.
You find that out later.
Nik Kershaw's with me. It's great meeting you and hanging out with you this week. Really good to meet you.
Thank you, Steve.
You're one of my favourites from the 80s, and I can't wait to see the tour. The tour starts when?
The tour starts, I think it's the 3rd of October.
Great stuff. Okay. Have a little look at all the dates and make sure you book some tickets. Thomas Dolby, tell me about this. This was very futuristic, wasn't it? Almost otherworldly in itself.
Yeah. Well, Thomas is a Suffolk boy. I was brought up in Ipswich. He came from a place called Shingle Street, which is like, that's got about 2 houses and some seagulls. That's about it. But he was always there. He was always in the periphery when I was making my first record and doing my first demos. I'm always aware of Thomas and what he was doing. Again, production, technology, and making it musical. It comes back to that again. I remember seeing it was on the Tube or something. He was doing a live thing as well, and he was recreating it live, which was extraordinary. I'd never seen anybody do that either.
How did he do it? Did he do it well?
He did it really. I mean, he's using synclaviers and Fairlights probably. The sampling, all that sampling technology, and it was extraordinary. So I kind of aspired to do that.
We're doing my 80s playlist. It's Nik Kershaw, Talking Heads. This is a big moment. Big moment. And lots of people request this song and say it was a game changer. Yeah. They never heard anything like it. Yeah. Or since, actually.
Well, this is, I mean, I've got no examples. I don't, we never met the guy. I never met David Byrne. I'm completely detached, living in the sticks as I do, completely attached from the kind of where he comes from, which is a whole New York arty scene with that sort of, going back even further, Velvet Underground, Andy Warhol. That is, to me, he's part of that kind of group of people. So there's something very mysterious about him, and something completely bonkers about him as well, which I love. And the fact that he's not afraid to just get up there and just, I'm going to wear a massive suit and just, I'm not a dancer, but I'm going to make these extraordinary moves. And the song itself is really clever because it turns on its head. It's basically the same bass line all the way through the song, but all of a sudden the first beat of the bar is now the third beat of the bar or something. It just changes, and it completely changes from the song being in a minor key for the verses, and then all of a sudden it's in this major key in the choruses without changing the chords. Yeah. It's just extraordinary.
It's so different, so creative. Yet he's actually made a really good radio song that's incredibly commercial and friendly all at the same time.
Yeah. No, and he was very good at that. And was just many examples of him doing the same thing. I could have picked several songs.
Nik Kershaw's with me. It's been great hanging out with you this week on My 80s Place. So I haven't asked you this question. I want to ask you this. Okay. What's your memories of being on Top of the Pops? Some people say great things. Other people absolutely hated it. I'm dying to ask you.
No, I didn't hate it. I mean, it was... I went through... There was two stages it went through for me. Because it wasn't always live. So sometimes you had that kind of bit of a breathe and you got to do it twice. But But the live shows were quite nerve-wracking, I think, because you do it in rehearsal and the camera is in one place, and then you do it on the night and it wasn't there at all.
And you can't mess it up. You've got one chance.
You can't mess it up. And the worst place to be on the live shows was hanging out in the BBC bar, because one too many lagers and it could all go horribly wrong. But there was a lot of hanging about. It's like you're and it's all very BBC. So hanging about in a BBC with a tepid cup of tea in a plastic cup, and there's Morrissey over there, and there's Cyndi Lauper over there, and it's all pretty bonkers.
And knowing that performance you're putting on as you're singing is being watched by 20 million people on a Thursday night. When I was at school, we all watched. It was the only place to see what your artists looked like.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's like the only two places you went for your music were Old Grey Whistle Test and Top of the Pops. That's what you did. So it was a huge deal when I was a kid. So actually doing it was wild. Yeah. And
have you ever gone on YouTube and rewatched any of your performances?
Well, sometimes it's unavoidable. You'd be. I mean, because I had to research some of these. There's some old footage of gigs as well, and I had to research that to for these shows coming up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know they're there, and my kids kind of, I know my kids have seen them. And you have to go through that with them, me and them say, "What were you thinking, Dad?"
I always thought you looked pretty cool. I thought you totally looked like you were in control of this.
Well, I so wasn't. That's the funny thing. There was, as I said, I was a jeans and t-shirt guy, so that I had a stylist appointed to me, and she'd put all this stuff on me and then stick me in front of a mirror and say, "You look amazing," and I'd look at the mirror and I think, do I though? This is if you say so. So I totally was not in control of all that, but it calmed. That was the first sort of 6 months was a bit like that, but then I got a bit of a handle on it and started taking a bit more control back.
Yeah. Now, your final song on this list, and they've all been brilliant. Paul Young, he came in to do this a year ago. Do you know him?
Yeah. I'd like to think he's a mate. Yeah. Paul, I've told with him. Part of the fact this is a great song, but it's also got lots of connections for me, lots of memories, because I toured the States with him, and this was always his encore of the last song he did. And there's one particular occasion at the Pier in New York. I think it was the last show he did, which. All sorts of things going on. It was quite extraordinary. I mean, Daryl Hall turned up because he wrote the song. He turned up to do the song with him. I'll never forget that. That's extraordinary. Plus, there were just loads of people, random people turning up. Earlier in the year, I got this message on. We were shooting the Don Quixote video, and I got this message at reception at the hotel. Could you call Miles Davis? And I'm like, yeah, right. And I completely forgot about it. And I come off stage halfway through my set, and Miles Davis is standing there checking me out. It's unbelievable. And I had a conversation with him afterwards, and Billy Joel was there, and Mark Knopfler was there, and I had this incredibly awkward 30-second conversation with him about it's just so I saw Mark Knopfler there, and I thought, Money for Nothing had just come out. I thought, it's Mark Knopfler, I'll go and say hi, right? So he said, I thought, what should I talk about? What's my opening line? He's a guitar player, I'm a guitar player. Guitar question, I thought. And I thought, I'll ask him about Money for Nothing, what pedal he was using, what was it compressed, and was he picking it or using his fingers, and how did he get that sound? And I went up to him and said, Mark, I'm Nik Kershaw, I've just been on. How did you get that sound at the beginning of Money for Nothing? And he said, it's a guitar. And that was it. So I just sort of walked off with my tail between my legs.
Gosh.
Yeah, but never liked him.
Listen, it's been amazing hanging out with you. Final question. You go on tour very soon, next few weeks. Any surprises? Can you tell me anything about the tour? I'm definitely coming.
Yeah, well, the surprise, the one song that we've never played, that's going to be a surprise because I haven't heard it yet. So we've literally got 2 days. Everybody's at home now practicing their parts, but we've literally got 2 days to get rehearsals together. So I don't know what it's going to be like. So it's all a big surprise to me.
I bet you're going to see people out in the audience that have like, you know, kind of grown with you.
Yeah, because
it's
not just the albums. I mean, obviously people are going to have their own memories and connections to the albums, but it's the gigs as well. They were at those gigs when we played all these songs live, and I'm trying to stay faithful to most of those arrangements as well, so people will be back in 1984.
Amazing. Can't wait. Yeah. Incredible to meet you as well. Thank you so much. Nik Kershaw, incredible guest.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.